You can feel it, can't you? Something inside you is shifting. Something is waking up. Because at some point in your life, you realize this truth. You don't need to be born rich to die rich, but you must be born again in your mind. That is the beginning of the 1% mindset. This audiobook is not about money. Not yet. Money comes later. Money is the symptom. Mindset is the cause. And the 1%, they think differently long before they earn differently. Welcome to the mindset of the 1%, the blueprint behind every person who built their life instead of inheriting one. The psychology used by the few who refuse to be controlled by circumstance, and the truth that most people never learn because they never ask the right questions. You're here because something inside you is done being average. Something inside you is tired of watching others win while you stay the same. Something inside you knows you could be great, but you haven't unlocked the version of yourself with the courage, discipline, and clarity to rise. That ends now. This is the moment your story changes. Before we continue, I want to say, my dear friend, if you are watching this video, then you are definitely on the right track. Like, subscribe, and write in the comments which topic or problem interests you the most. Chapter 1. The 1% don't play the same game. Here is the first secret the rich won't say out loud. Most people aren't losing because they're stupid or unlucky. They're losing because they're playing a game the 1% designed. The average person tries to win at fitting in, surviving the month, not upsetting anyone, doing what they're told. The 1% try to win at increasing leverage, multiplying time, building power quietly, making themselves ungovernable. Same world, different game. The 1% knows something most people never understand. If your mind is controlled, your life is controlled. The moment you break mental dependency, you become unstoppable. And that is why the 1% mindset begins with one rule. Rule for 1. Think in decades, not days. Poor thinkers obsess over today, how they feel today, what someone said today, what inconvenience happened today. Rich thinkers obsess over decades, where they'll be in 10 years, what habits will compound, what skills will outlive the economy. If you think short-term, life will always feel urgent, stressful, chaotic. If you think long-term, everything becomes calm, strategic, intentional. The 1% ask, will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, they stop giving it their attention. Imagine how peaceful your life becomes when 9 out of 5% of what bothers you no longer matters. Because here's the truth. Small minds drown in small problems. Big minds outgrow them. Chapter 2. The 1% protect their mind like it's gold. Here's something you may never have heard before. The most powerful asset of the 1% is not their money. It's the environment they protect their mind in. If you study wealthy performers, innovators, creators, leaders, athletes, founders, they all share one thing. They protect their mental space with brutal boundaries. They avoid negative people, chaotic conversations, gossip, emotional parasites, the news, low-energy distractions. They choose silence, clarity, intentional information, mentors, books, forward-focused people. Why? Because the world is designed to keep you reactive, emotional, distracted, overwhelmed, and when your attention is scattered, your potential is dead. The 1% are calm because they control what enters their mind. The 99% are chaotic because their mind is a public playground. Let me ask you something and answer honestly. How many people have access to your mind who haven't earned that privilege? How many voices slow you down? How much energy do you waste reacting instead of creating? Your life is shaped by the conversations you tolerate. Control your inputs, and your outputs transform automatically. Chapter 3. The 1% don't seek approval, they seek results. Here's a painful truth. Most people fail because they want to be liked more than they want to win. Approval is the prison. Results are the key. While the average person says, "What will they think of me?" Will they judge me? Will they laugh if I fail? The 1% say, "Will this move me forward? Is this aligned with my future self? Does this investment compound?" Approval has never built a legacy. Discomfort has. Your desire to be accepted is costing you your potential. When you finally stop living for applause, you begin living for mastery. Because here's the truth, the 1% learn early, people respect results, not opinions, not intentions, not dreams, results. And results come from discipline, not desire. Chapter 4. The 1% turn pain into power. Life is not easy for the wealthy, not at the beginning, not in the middle, not even at the top. But here's the difference. Average minds run from discomfort. The 1% mine it for gold. They know pain contains lessons. Failure contains data. Rejection builds resilience. Struggle builds intelligence. Every setback carries information that can make you unstoppable if you're willing to face it instead of escape it. Pain is not your enemy. Avoidance is. When most people experience difficulty, they say, "This is too hard." When the 1% experience difficulty, they say, "This is how champions are made." Same event, different meaning, different destiny. Chapter 5. The 1% think in terms of leverage. This is one of the deepest secrets. Hard work is not enough. Hard work alone keeps you broke. Leverage is what builds wealth. Leverage means your knowledge works even when you don't. Your systems produce value without your presence. Your money earns money. Your reputation opens doors. Your network multiplies opportunities. Most people trade time for money. The 1% trade ideas, systems, and value. The average person says, "I can't afford that." The 1% ask, "How do I acquire the skills or relationships that make that opportunity possible?" This is why the wealthy get wealthier. Not because they're lucky, but because they understand leverage. If you ever want to join the 1%, your mind must shift from effort to impact, from hours worked to value created. This is the turning point most people never reach. Chapter 6. The 1% are not motivated, they are conditioned. This may shock you. The 1% are not more motivated than you. They are more conditioned than you. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Most people wait to feel ready. The 1% create systems so powerful that readiness doesn't matter. They show up whether they feel like it or not. They understand consistency beats intensity. Identity beats inspiration. Structure beats motivation. You become successful not because of what you occasionally do, but because of what you refuse to stop doing. You're about to hear the truth that separates the 1% from everyone else. A truth most people avoid for their entire lives. A truth so simple, yet so uncomfortable, that entire industries exist to distract you from it. Here it is. Rule number 7. Everything is your fault. Not because you caused everything, but because you are the only one who can change anything. The 9% resist this rule. They say things like, "It's not my fault I didn't grow up rich. It's not my fault the economy is bad. It's not my fault people don't believe in me." And they're right. It's not their fault, but it is their responsibility. And that is where the 1% think differently. They don't care who is to blame. They focus on what must be done. Blame keeps you stuck. Responsibility moves you forward. The moment you stop pointing fingers and start taking ownership, your life accelerates. Because when everything is your responsibility, everything becomes fixable. This is the psychological shift that transforms you from a victim of life into an architect of life. The 1% don't wait for circumstances to improve. They improve despite their circumstances. Chapter 7. The 1% bet on themselves while others bet on safety. There is a reason most people stay average. They are addicted to safety. They're taught, get the safe job, take the safe path, avoid the risky dream, choose the predictable life. But here is the truth. Safety is the most dangerous place you can live. Safety costs you progress. Safety costs you growth. Safety costs you potential. And the 1% know this. While the average person chooses comfort, the 1% choose exposure. Exposure to new ideas, new skills, new risks, new challenges. Because they've learned a simple but powerful law. Your income will never exceed your self-belief. You cannot outperform your self-image. You cannot build a powerful life with a powerless mindset. Everyone wants to bet on the winning horse. The 1% bet on the horse and the jockey is always themselves. Chapter 8. The 1% see opportunity while others see obstacles. Let me show you something profound. Imagine two people facing the same situation. A recession hits. Prices rise. Jobs shrink. Chaos everywhere. The average person says, "This is terrible. Everything is getting worse." The 1% say, "This is where fortunes are made." Same circumstance, different lens, different outcome. Here's the secret. Opportunity does not disappear. Your perception does. Most people are blind to opportunities because they're trained to look for threats, not possibilities. The 1% train their mind differently. They look for new needs to serve. They look for skills the world suddenly values. They look for gaps in the market. They look for problems to solve. They look for leverage. When others freeze, the 1% move. When others panic, the 1% plan. When others retreat, the 1% advance quietly. This is how generational wealth is built. During the moments everyone else is emotionally overwhelmed, the rich don't wait for the storm to clear. They learn to navigate through it. Chapter 9. The 1% understand the power of quiet work. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Let me introduce you to one of the most overlooked truths about wealthy and successful people. The 1% don't announce their progress. They build in silence. The average person wants applause, validation, recognition, visible progress. But the 1% want results, mastery, skill, leverage. The noise you make doesn't build your life. The work you do in silence does. Success is like a seed. If you dig it up every day to show people, it never grows. The 1% stay silent because silence protects their vision. Silence protects their energy. Silence protects their confidence. Silence protects their momentum. And here's the psychological twist. When people don't know what you're building, they can't distract you, doubt you, or derail you. Your future grows faster when fewer people have access to it. Chapter 10. The 1% don't compete. They redesign the game. Competition is for beginners. The 1% operate differently. They don't try to beat others. They try to become so uniquely valuable that competition becomes irrelevant. Here's how they think. How do I become the only option, not just another option? How do I become so skilled that I eliminate comparison? How do I create a category where no one else plays? Most people try to be better. The 1% try to be different. Better is subjective. Different is undeniable. When you stop competing, you start creating. When you stop trying to win someone else's race, you start building your own track. This is why the 1% rise above the noise. They don't fight for space. They build space, and the world always pays a premium for originality. Chapter 11. The 1%. Think about time like investors. Here is one of the most fascinating psychological differences between the wealthy and everyone else. Most people think money is the most valuable resource. The 1% know time is. Money returns. Time does not. The 1% treat their time like gold. They avoid small talk. They avoid gossip. They avoid unproductive environments. They avoid emotional chaos. They avoid people who drain more than they contribute. Every wasted hour compounds negatively. Every intentional hour compounds positively. The 1% ask, is this worth my time at my future value? Not at who they are today, but at the person they're becoming. That single shift changes everything. Because when you truly value your time, you instantly upgrade your life. You stop tolerating nonsense. You stop chasing distractions. You stop giving energy to things that won't matter. Most people lose not because they're incapable, but because they're distracted. You're about to hear one of the most powerful truths in this entire audiobook. A truth that has kept millions stuck in cycles of frustration, procrastination, and unrealized potential. Here it is. Most people wait for the right moment. The 1% created. The average person lives in a mental prison called when life stabilizes. They tell themselves, I'll start the business when I have more money. I'll work on myself when things calm down. I'll commit when I'm not stressed. I'll take action when I feel motivated. But life never stabilizes. Life never hands you clarity on a silver platter. Life rarely presents a perfect opening. The 1% do not wait for the perfect moment. They begin, and the moment becomes perfect because they shaped it with action. This is the illusion that traps the 99%. They think preparation comes before movement, but movement creates preparation. If you're waiting for clarity, move. If you're waiting for confidence, move. If you're waiting for the fear to disappear, move. The world rewards momentum. The moment you take action, life bends around your decisions. This is why the 1% build extraordinary lives. They act while others analyze. They decide while others delay. They move while others misunderstand. Chapter 12. Why the 1% don't care about being understood. One of the most liberating shifts that separates the wealthy, the successful, and the unstoppable from everyone else is this. They are not addicted to being understood. Most people live paralyzed by the opinions of others. What will people think? What if they don't support me? What if they laugh? What if they assume I'm arrogant? But here's the truth. People will judge you anyway. People will misunderstand you regardless. People will create stories whether you speak or stay silent. So the 1% stop chasing approval and start chasing purpose. They don't need applause to begin. They don't need permission to grow. They don't need validation to evolve. They understand this powerful law of human nature. When you rise, the world adjusts. When you shrink, the world doesn't notice. So they choose rise. Being misunderstood is not a sign of failure. It's often a sign of transformation. Your growth will confuse people who refuse to grow. Your ambition will challenge people who gave up on theirs. Your focus will irritate those who live in distraction. The 1% don't care because they're too busy becoming who they're meant to be. Chapter 13. The 1% play long games while others chase short wins. You can identify a 1% thinker by one trait alone. They think in decades. Most people think in days. And this one difference changes everything. The 1% live in a loop. Get a little money, spend it, get a little progress, stop, get a little discomfort, quit, get a little doubt, retreat. They chase results, not mastery. They chase validation, not transformation. They chase dopamine, not discipline. But the 1% know if you want uncommon results, you must outlast the common mindset. Success is not a lottery, it's a timeline. It's the compound interest of patience, consistency, and long-term vision. A 1% thinker asks, what decision today will pay me for the next 10 years? What skill will be invaluable a decade from now? What daily habits will make my future self unstoppable? They are willing to be invisible for years because they know visibility eventually comes to those who refuse to give up. The average person wants progress now. The 1% want progress forever. Chapter 14. The 1% build self-trust before anything else. Before wealth, before success, before mastery. There is one thing every elite performer must build: unbreakable self-trust. Most people do not trust themselves. That's why they procrastinate. That's why they hesitate. That's why they break their own promises. Every time you say you'll do something and you don't, you weaken the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Confidence is the foundation of action. Action is the foundation of success. So the 1% guard their self-trust with discipline. They say, if I say I'll do it, I do it. If I commit, I show up. If I promise myself something, I deliver. Because if you can't keep promises to yourself, you will never be able to keep them to your future. This is why the 1% rise. Their word is law, even to themselves. Chapter 15. The 1%. No fear doesn't go away. You just outgrow it. There is a myth that stops millions from ever trying. The myth that fear disappears when you become successful. It doesn't. The 1% are not fearless. They are simply unwilling to let fear dictate the direction of their life. They learned early, fear is not a stop sign. Fear is not danger. Fear is not a warning. Fear is simply a signal that you're expanding beyond who you were yesterday. The average person waits for courage. The 1% move first, and courage grows from movement. They don't avoid fear. They use it. Because fear is energy. Fear is attention. Fear is focus. If you redirect it toward growth instead of avoidance, fear becomes fuel. We're about to enter the next phase of the audiobook, the phase where we reveal the internal mechanics of a 1% mind, the psychological patterns, the emotional habits, the invisible choices that build extraordinary lives. In the next section, you will learn the truth most people never hear about what truly separates the extraordinary from the average. Get ready. Chapter 16. The 1% don't chase motivation. They build momentum. The average person waits for motivation. They treat motivation like weather. If the conditions are good, I'll do the work. But the 1% know that motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It fluctuates. It collapses under pressure. So they don't rely on motivation. They rely on momentum. Momentum is a force. Once it starts, it grows. Once it grows, it becomes exponential. The 99% ask, how do I stay motivated? The 1% ask, What tiny action can I take right now that moves me forward even 1%? Not a giant leap, not an overwhelming change, just one small action that signals to the brain, we are moving, we are progressing, we are growing. Momentum doesn't care how you feel. It only cares that you begin. And once you begin, a powerful shift happens. Action creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates a new identity. This is why the 1% become unstoppable. They let momentum carry them through the days. Motivation can't. Chapter 17. The 1% understand the psychology of attention. There is something the 1% protect more fiercely than money, more fiercely than their schedule, more fiercely even than their reputation. It is their attention. Your life goes where your attention flows. Your energy follows your focus. Your results reflect your internal priorities. Not what you say you want, but what you actually pay attention to. The average person leaks attention everywhere. Endless scrolling, constant reacting, emotional reactivity, gossip, comparison, tiny distractions that pile up, mental clutter disguised as entertainment. But the 1% do something radically different. They build an environment that forces focus, not encourages it, not hopes for it. Forces it. Why? Because they know that even the strongest willpower eventually breaks under constant distraction. But a properly designed environment makes success the default. They eliminate what wastes attention. They reduce what drains mental bandwidth. They deliberately starve distractions until discipline becomes effortless. The 99% think the battle is external. The 1% know the battle is won internally long before a single action is taken. Chapter 18. The 1% study themselves like a science. Most people don't know why they do what they do. They don't observe their emotions. They don't study their patterns. They don't question their reactions. They just repeat. Same habits, same triggers, same fears, same setbacks, same outcomes. But the 1% operate differently. They treat their mind like a laboratory. Every failure is a data point. Every fear is a signal. Every setback is a lesson. Every emotional reaction is information. They constantly ask, why did I respond that way? What belief is driving this behavior? What pattern is repeating here? How can I adjust, refine, improve? This self-analysis is not emotional, it's strategic. Because the 1% know this truth. If you don't understand yourself, life will control you. If you do understand yourself, you can control life. The richest people aren't just financially wealthy. They're emotionally intelligent, psychologically aware, and brutally honest with themselves. This is why they evolve faster. This is why they make better decisions. This is why they outgrow the environments that limit others. Chapter 19. The 1% are comfortable with being alone. Most people cannot handle silence. They cannot handle stillness. They cannot handle their own thoughts without distractions. Silence exposes truth, and truth is uncomfortable. But the 1% willingly walk into solitude because they know you cannot build a powerful inner world if you're always drowning in the noise of the outer one. Silence sharpens awareness. Solitude builds identity. Stillness reveals direction. When you strip away distractions, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to show you what actually matters. The average person runs from silence. The 1% use it as a weapon because silence reveals what you're avoiding, what you desire, what you fear, what you must change, what you must build. You cannot become extraordinary if you are never alone with yourself. You cannot lead others until you learn to lead your own mind. Chapter 20. The 1% know that emotional control is a superpower. If there's one skill that separates high achievers from everyone else, it's this. They control their emotions before their emotions control them. The average person reacts fast, takes things personally, is easily offended, is triggered by small inconveniences, loses focus when frustrated, lets feelings dictate direction. But the 1% have trained themselves to pause, to breathe, to wait before responding, to choose logic over impulse, to stay stable when everyone else panics. They understand. If someone can control your emotions, they can control your decisions. And if they can control your decisions, they control your life. The 1% remain calm when others are chaotic. They remain grounded when others are overwhelmed. They remain strategic while others are drowning in reaction. Emotional control is not suppression. It is mastery. And mastery makes you powerful in every environment you enter. Chapter 21. The 1% build systems, not goals. The average person sets goals. The 1% build systems. A goal says, I want to lose weight. A system says, I exercise every day at 7 a.m. A goal says, I want to make more money. A system says, I create content every day, study markets weekly, and execute a plan monthly. A goal says, I want to become successful. A system says, my environment, habits, schedule, and mindset are designed to create success automatically. This is why the 99% fail. They try to achieve big goals with small, inconsistent routines. You cannot become extraordinary with the habits of an average person, and you cannot rely on bursts of inspiration to build a life that requires discipline. Goals rely on emotion. Systems rely on structure. Goals rely on desire. Systems rely on process. Goals end when motivation fades. Systems continue long after. The 1% build systems so powerful that success becomes the path of least resistance. Imagine that for a moment. Your routine is so solid. Your environment is so optimized. Your habits are so automatic that success stops being a choice. It becomes your default setting. That is the mindset of the 1%. Chapter 22, the 1% rebuild their identity. If you appreciate our efforts and our thoughts, subscribe and like this video. We need to show the world that there are many people like us. We must always continue to improve. Here is one of the deepest truths of wealth. You will never outperform your identity. You can force discipline for a while. You can push through motivation waves. You can grind with intensity. But if you still see yourself as a broke person, a struggling person, a not good enough person, a small thinker, you will always snap back to that internal identity. This is why the 1% focus on identity first. Not, what do I need to do? But, who must I become? When your identity changes, your behavior changes naturally. When your behavior changes, your results change naturally. People try to grow results without growing identity, and that is why they stay stuck. If you want to live differently, you must think differently. If you want to think differently, you must see yourself differently. The 1% believe deeply. They deserve wealth. They can build wealth. They can learn any skill. They can solve any problem. They can change at any time, and because they believe it, they become it. Your identity is your internal thermostat. If it's set to average, you will keep returning to average. If it's set to wealthy, you will rise to that level even when life knocks you down. This is why the 1% rise and rise and rise again. Chapter 23. The 1% Know the power of compound decisions. Everyone understands compound interest. Not everyone understands compound behavior. The 1% do. They know that tiny, consistent decisions in health, money, mindset, relationships, and discipline stack on each other daily, and eventually they explode. 10 minutes of reading a day becomes a library of knowledge. 1 hour of focus a day becomes a skill. $10 invested weekly becomes wealth. A single message sent daily becomes opportunities. Treating people with respect becomes a powerful network. Declining distractions becomes unstoppable momentum. The average person wants big results from big actions. The 1% know big results come from small actions repeated for years. They are not in a hurry. They are not chasing overnight success. They are not focused on shortcuts. They are focused on stacking small wins, because small wins compound, and compounded wins become inevitable victories. This is why a 1% mindset works even when life gets hard, because the system doesn't rely on intensity. It relies on consistency. Chapter 24, The 1%. Understand the psychology of long-term play. Most people think in days, some think in weeks, a few think in months. The 1% think in decades. This single mental shift separates achievers from observers. When you think long-term, you stop chasing validation. You stop panicking over temporary setbacks. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop giving up too early. You stop making emotional decisions. The average person is addicted to immediacy. They need quick wins, fast results, instant praise, but the 1% are playing a game that most people don't even realize exists. They build foundations quietly. They build networks slowly. They build skills relentlessly. They build momentum gradually. And the world doesn't notice until suddenly everyone does. That is the long-term play. You look behind for a long time, and then one day you are ahead of everyone. Chapter 25, The 1% are comfortable with unfair criticism. Here's the truth. The moment you start growing, the world will have an opinion. Not all of it will be kind. Not all of it will be fair. Not all of it will even make sense. But the 1% know something most never learn. Criticism is the tax you pay for growth. If no one is criticizing you, you're not doing anything significant. If no one is doubting you, you're not dreaming big enough. If no one is uncomfortable with your ambition, you're still playing small. The 1% understand that people project their insecurities outward. When you rise, it threatens their comfort. When you improve, it exposes their stagnation. When you start winning, it reminds them of their excuses. Criticism isn't about you, it's about them. So the 1% don't shrink, they don't explain, they don't justify. They keep moving because they understand you cannot take advice from people who are not living the life you want. You cannot accept opinions from those who fear what you pursue. Your growth will offend someone. Let it. Chapter 26, The 1%. Know that stillness is a strategy. This isn't talked about enough. Successful people are not always moving. They also know when to be still. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is recalibration. Stillness allows decisions to mature. Stillness allows emotions to settle. Stillness allows creativity to breathe. Stillness allows the mind to reorganize itself. The average person thinks movement equals progress. But noise is not productivity. Busyness is not success. Stillness is a leadership skill. It is a wealth skill. It is a growth skill. The 1% step back not to retreat, but to return stronger and clearer. Stillness is where breakthroughs happen. Decisions fearlessness, and the confidence engine of the 1%. You've now stepped deep into the psychological foundation of elite success. But this next section reveals something even more powerful. Why the 1% make decisions faster, why they rarely hesitate, why they act while everyone else waits for clarity, and how you can build that same level of unshakable confidence inside yourself. This is not personality. This is not talent. This is not luck. It is a mindset, a replicable, trainable mindset. And when you master this, you stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. You stop drifting. You start directing. You stop accepting life. You start creating it. Let's begin. Chapter 27. The 1% make decisions fast and revise slowly. Here is one of the greatest differentiators between the wealthy and everyone else. The poor delay decisions. The rich delay nothing. Not because they're reckless, not because they're impulsive, but because they understand a fundamental truth. Clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes from action. Most people wait to feel ready, to know more, to think it through, to hear more opinions, to get confirmation, to make sure it's perfect. And while they wait, the 1% act. They act with partial information. They act without guarantees. They act before they feel confident, because they understand that momentum is a form of intelligence. Once you're moving, you see what others cannot see from a standstill. The average person thinks decision-making is about certainty. The rich know decision-making is about direction. When you start moving, every step reveals the next clue. Chapter 28. Fear doesn't stop the 1%. It guides them. Most people feel fear and freeze. The 1% feel fear and lean in. Why? Because they know something simple. Fear points directly toward your next level. If something scares them, it means it will stretch them. It will grow them. It will expose their limits. It will create new capacity. It will build self-trust. It will multiply their options. The average person runs from fear. The rich use fear like a compass. If a conversation scares them, they initiate it. If an opportunity intimidates them, they step into it. If a skill feels overwhelming, they begin learning it. Fear becomes the signal. This is exactly where you must go next. The reason most people never progress is not a lack of potential. It's avoidance. Fear is the gatekeeper of success. And only those who walk through the gate experience what's on the other side. Chapter 29. The 1% build confidence from evidence, not dreams. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. The 1% are not confident because they were born confident. They are confident because they create confidence. How? By stacking small wins. Confidence does not come from positive thinking. Confidence comes from proof. Every time you do something difficult, you gain evidence that you are capable. Every time you follow through on your promises, you gain evidence that you are trustworthy. Every time you stay disciplined, you gain evidence that you have self-control. The average person wants confidence before taking action. The rich gain confidence because they take action. Action, evidence, confidence, bigger action, bigger evidence, unbreakable confidence. This is the confidence engine. It turns ordinary individuals into extraordinary leaders. You do not need to be confident to start. You need to start so you can become confident. Chapter 30. The 1% speak differently, the language of power. If you've ever been in a room with high performers, you know this instantly. They speak differently, not arrogantly, not loudly, not aggressively, but with precision, intent, calm, authority, clarity. The 1% use language that shapes reality instead of describing it. For example, instead of, "I hope things get better," they say, "I'm working on things that will make life better." Instead of, "We'll see how it goes," they say, "Here is the plan." Instead of, "I don't know if I can," they say, "I'm learning how to do it." Instead of, "I'm overwhelmed," they say, "I choose priorities and eliminate noise." Their language creates direction. Their language eliminates uncertainty. Their language signals leadership to themselves and to everyone around them. You rise to the level of the words you speak. Speak average, and you create average outcomes. Speak intentionally, and you create intentional outcomes. Change your language. You change your mindset. You change your life. Chapter 31. The 1% are not distraction-proof, but they are distraction-aware. The average person loses entire years to distraction and doesn't even realize it. The 1% understand something deeper. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and they treat it like gold. They analyze what drains them, what energizes them, who distracts them, what anchors them, which environments elevate them, which environments weaken them. When something steals their attention, they don't shame themselves. They simply eliminate the source. They are not trying to resist distraction. They are designing a life where distractions have nowhere to grow. Most people try to use willpower to stay focused. The 1% use environment power. They create spaces where focus is the default, not the struggle. The right environment is a silent mentor. It teaches you to rise without forcing you to rise. Chapter 32. The 1% never argue for their limits. This is something almost every unsuccessful person does. They argue for why they can't change. They defend their limitations. They justify staying the same. They say things like, "That's just how I am. I'm not good at that. I don't have the confidence. I've never been disciplined. It's too late for me." People like me don't succeed like that. And every time they say it, they solidify it. The 1% do the opposite. They argue for their potential. They speak for their future self. They defend their growth. They protect their evolution. They fight for who they are becoming, not who they were. This is why they outgrow their past while others keep repeating theirs. You cannot become powerful while speaking weakness into your identity. Chapter 33. The 1% only rely on discipline for starting, not for finishing. Most people fail because they believe discipline is something you must feel every day. The 1% know the truth. Discipline is a spark, not a fuel. You use discipline to begin a task, but after that, you rely on structure, environment, momentum, and commitment. The average person tries to power their entire life on pure discipline, and they burn out. The rich design systems that eliminate decision fatigue. They automate their schedules, their priorities, their habits, their non-negotiables, even their energy cycles. You think they're disciplined every day? No. They simply don't leave room for undisciplined behavior. Their lives are designed like a guided track. Discipline only gets them into the train. The track takes them the rest of the way. You don't succeed because you're strong every day. You succeed because your system doesn't require you to be. Chapter 34. The 1% remove friction from their goals. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. Here is another secret. The 1% don't make their success harder. They make it easier. They remove friction. If they want to wake up early, they set the environment the night before. If they want to work out, The gym clothes are already out. If they want to focus deeply, they remove the noise before the work session begins. If they want to build wealth, their savings and investments are automated. The average person thinks success is about pushing harder, but the 1% understand success is about removing obstacles. Every source of friction, no matter how small, is treated as a threat to their long-term goals. Do you know what destroys dreams? Not huge failures, not massive mistakes. It's tiny daily friction that wears down your will until you stop trying. Remove friction, and success becomes natural. Chapter 35, The 1%, Prioritize long-term energy over short-term emotion. Most people make decisions based on how they feel right now. The rich make decisions based on who they want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Feel tired? They still commit. Feel anxious? They still execute. Feel uncertain? They still take the next step. Feel discouraged? They still move forward because they don't live by emotion. They live by principles. They understand. Emotions are temporary. Consequences are permanent. This is why the elite stay consistent while the average person fluctuates constantly. Your emotions want comfort. Your future wants strength. Only one can win. And the 1% always choose their future self over their current feelings. Chapter 36, The 1% don't manage time. They manage themselves. You've heard the phrase, time management your entire life. The 1% know it's a lie. You cannot manage time. Time doesn't change. Time doesn't pause. Time doesn't rearrange itself for you. The only thing you can manage is yourself, your habits, your focus, your discipline, your energy, your environment, your priorities. When people say they don't have time, what they really mean is, I don't have control over myself. The rich do. That's the difference. Time is equal. Discipline is not. Clarity is not. Self-management is not. The 1% aren't better than you. They are better at controlling themselves than you. Chapter 37, The 1% do less, but better. This chapter may shock you. The 1% do fewer things than everyone else. The difference? They do those few things with world-class precision. Most people attempt too much. Too many goals. Too many plans. Too many commitments. Too many distractions disguised as opportunities. The elite narrow their focus to a few high-impact actions and execute them relentlessly. They prune their lives like a master gardener. Everything that doesn't contribute to their future, cut. Everything that doesn't elevate their trajectory, cut. Everything that drains energy or attention, cut. They are not minimalists. They are maximizers. They don't try to do everything. They try to do the right things consistently. That is why they outperform thousands of people who work harder, longer, and more chaotically. Chapter 38, The 1% always know their next step. Do you know what makes people anxious? Not problems, not challenges, not pressure. It's not knowing what to do next. The 1% eliminate this uncertainty through a powerful process, the daily reset. Every evening they answer 3 questions. 1. What are the 3 things I must accomplish tomorrow that truly matter? 2. What obstacles might I face, and how will I handle them? 3. What's my first action the moment I wake up? This simple ritual eliminates overwhelm, confusion, indecision, chaos, emotional noise, wasted time. When you always know your next step, you always stay moving forward. It's impossible to drift when your direction is clear. Chapter 39. The 1% are not lucky. They are prepared. Success looks like luck from the outside, but from the inside, it looks like preparation meeting opportunity. The average person believes opportunities just happen. To the rich, no. The rich create conditions where opportunities naturally appear. They build skills, build networks, build credibility, build results, build consistency, build resilience, and then when an opportunity arrives, they are ready. Most people miss the very opportunities they pray for because they are unprepared to receive them. The 1% treat preparation as oxygen. They treat readiness as responsibility. The message is simple. Prepare for the opportunity before it comes, so when it arrives, you catch it. Chapter 40. The 1% decide who they are going to be. Most people wait for results to define their identity. The 1% do the opposite. They choose their identity first, then build the results to match it. They don't say, I'll believe I'm disciplined once I'm successful. They say, I am disciplined, so success will follow. They don't say, I'll think like a millionaire once I make money. They say, I think like a millionaire now, and the money will catch up. Identity leads. Results follow. This is why the 1% rise even when circumstances are against them. They don't let the world tell them who they are. They decide. Chapter 41, the 1%. Practice identity alignment. Identity alignment means your actions reflect the person you claim to be. Look at your life. You say you want to be wealthy, but do your habits match someone building wealth? You say you want to be confident, but do your actions match someone confident? You say you want discipline, but do you behave like someone who honors commitments? Identity alignment is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Every day, the 1% ask themselves, are my actions aligned with the future I want? If not, they adjust immediately. No guilt, no shame, just alignment. Average people have desires. The 1% have identity-driven behaviors. That's why desires fail and identities win. Chapter 42, the 1% embody their future self before they become them. Here is a psychological weapon the 1% use. They live as their future self. Now, before the business succeeds, before the money arrives, before the recognition comes, before the world believes in them, they act from their future identity, not their current limitations. Ask yourself, how would the millionaire version of me act today? How would the disciplined version of me behave? How would the confident version of me speak? How would the unstoppable version of me respond? When you consistently behave like your future self, your life begins restructuring itself around that identity. You don't become successful one day. You step into it every day. Chapter 43, the 1% don't explain themselves. They evolve. One of the biggest identity traps is the need to explain your transformation to others. The wealthy avoid this entirely. They evolve quietly. They upgrade silently. They transform without announcing anything. Not everyone deserves access to your progress. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your journey. Not everyone will understand the identity you're building. The 1% don't ask for permission. They don't look for approval. They don't negotiate their growth. They evolve and let their results do the talking. Chapter 44, the 1% protect their identity at all cost. Identity is like a flame. If you don't protect it, the wind of the world will blow it out. So the 1% guard their identity fiercely. They distance themselves from people who mock ambition. They avoid conversations that reinforce mediocrity. They limit exposure to negativity and cynicism. They surround themselves with people whose identities match their aspirations. They curate their environment to match their future, not their past. They know identity can be influenced subtly, silently, constantly. So they choose influence intentionally. If your environment doesn't match the identity you want, your environment will destroy the identity you need. Chapter 45. The 1% Build Unbreakable Self-Trust. Here is one of the greatest secrets of the ultra-successful. Self-trust is the foundation of all wealth. Self-trust means you do what you say you'll do, you honor your commitments, you don't negotiate with your excuses, you follow through even when it's inconvenient, you don't betray yourself for comfort. Every time you keep your word to yourself, your identity strengthens. Every time you break your word to yourself, your identity weakens. The rich do not rely on motivation, they rely on self-trust, because when you trust yourself completely, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you know you can handle whatever comes. Chapter 46. The 1% Turn Obsession into Mastery. What's the smartest thing you've learned about money so far? Share it. Others may learn from your wisdom. The world loves telling you not to obsess. But the 1% ignore that advice. Greatness requires obsession. Not unhealthy obsession, but focused, disciplined, purposeful obsession. The 1% are obsessed with excellence, mastery, improvement, clarity, momentum, becoming better than yesterday. Obsession is not a weakness, it's a catalyst. Most people dabble, the elite master. Most people try, the elite commit. Most people attempt, the elite transform. Your future requires a level of focus others will misinterpret as obsession. Let them misunderstand. You are building something they weren't given the vision to see. Chapter 47. The 1%. No, there is no arriving. The average person believes success is a destination. They believe one day they will arrive. The 1% know the truth. There is no arrival. There is only evolution. Success is not a finish line. It is a lifestyle, a mindset, a rhythm, a way of existing. The moment you think you've arrived, you begin to decline. The 1% never plateau because they never believe the journey is over. They live in a constant state of refinement, renewal, reinvention. There is no finish line because there is no limit. Chapter 48. The 1% live by internal standards, not external pressure. Most people perform only when watched. The 1% perform even in silence, even in private, even when there is no praise, no applause, no validation, because their standards are internal. They don't need someone to push them. They don't need someone to remind them. They don't need approval to act. They act because they said they would. They act because they are that kind of person. This is why they rise above everyone else. They don't wait for consequences. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for circumstances. They move because their identity demands it. Chapter 49. The 1% build a future they feel before they see. The wealthy have a strange ability. They feel the future before it exists. They can emotionally lock onto a vision so tightly that it becomes more real to them than their current circumstances. That's why they don't quit when progress is slow. That's why they persist when others walk away. That's why they commit when others collapse, because they aren't driven by what they see. They're driven by what they feel. While the world is reacting to today, the 1% are led by tomorrow. This is how they stay unwavering. This is how they stay unbreakable. They live for the future they believe in, not the present they are escaping. Chapter 50. The 1% remove their old self completely. Here is a truth most will never hear. You cannot become the 1% while keeping parts of the identity that kept you average. You must let that version die. The version of you that procrastinates, settles, avoids discomfort, needs approval, breaks promises, fears judgment, waits for motivation, chooses easy over right. That version is not allowed in your future. The 1% don't upgrade the old self. They replace it entirely. The old identity is stripped away like worn-out armor. The new identity is forged with intention. This is why their transformation lasts. It's not behavior change, it's identity rebirth. Chapter 51, the 1%. Understand that envy is misdirected admiration. The average person envies success. The 1% analyze it. They don't look at jealousy and say, "Why them?" They look at success and ask, "What can I learn?" The difference is enormous. Envy shuts you down. Curiosity opens you up. Jealousy kills ambition. Observation builds mastery. When you stop competing with people and start learning from them, you unlock a new level of evolution. The 1% don't resent winners. They study them because they understand. Every person you envy is simply proving what's possible for you. Chapter 52. The 1% are unemotional about failure. Average people personalize failure. They think failure means, "I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. This is proof I should stop." The 1% think, "Good, that didn't work. Let's adjust." There is no emotional crash. There is no identity crisis. There is no dramatic meaning added. Failure is simply data. It's feedback. It's information. It's refinement. They don't break down. They take notes. The world says failure defines you. The 1% say failure redirects me. Failure refines me. Failure trains me. Because they know every person who fails and tries again is already ahead of those who never start. Chapter 53. The 1% never break the most important promise, not to others, not to society, not to family, to themselves. This is the defining trait of the 1%. They trust themselves. They trust themselves because they keep their word. They do what they say they will do. They don't negotiate with their goals. They don't betray their future self for temporary comfort, while the 99% break promises daily. "I'll start tomorrow. I'll be consistent this time. I'll wake up early. I'll save more money. I'll stop wasting time." The 1% treat every promise as a contract, not optional, not flexible, not negotiable. This is why the world trusts them. This is why opportunities find them. This is why success gravitates toward them, because they trust themselves first. Chapter 61. The 1%. Never forget what they're working for. The world will try to distract you. People will try to discourage you. Life will try to test you. Your old habits will try to pull you back. But the 1% stay locked in because they know the cost of losing focus. Dreams fade. Momentum dies. Opportunities disappear. Identity weakens. So they remind themselves daily why they started, who they're becoming, what life they're building, what future they refuse to sacrifice. Average people work for results. The 1% work for transformation. This is why they don't stop. This is why they don't quit. This is why they don't settle. They are not motivated by income. They are motivated by becoming. And once you fall in love with who you're becoming, nothing can pull you back to who you were. Chapter 62, the 1% mindset is already inside you. You just have to claim it. The final truth. There is nothing the 1% have that you cannot build. Not their courage, not their discipline, not their emotional control, not their confidence, not their focus, not their resilience, not their habits, not their clarity, not their mindset. You are not missing anything. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not too inexperienced. You are not too old. You are not too damaged. You are not too ordinary. You are simply unclaimed potential. The 1% don't have different DNA. They have different decisions. Decisions you can make. Decisions you can repeat. Decisions you can embody. The moment you choose to think differently, you step onto their path. The moment you choose discipline over distraction, you step onto their path. The moment you choose purpose over comfort, you step onto their path. And if you stay on that path long enough, you stop chasing the 1%, you become the 1%. Final declaration. Read this slowly. This is the moment. The identity shift, the psychological rebirth. Repeat these words internally as if your future depends on them. From this day forward, I will think like the 1%, act like the 1%, and rise like the 1%. My habits will reflect it. My discipline will prove it. My identity will embody it. I am no longer hoping for success. I am becoming the person success is looking for. This is your new standard, your new identity, your new future, and it begins now.